Welcome to Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation.
What is today, the 19th?
Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this 24th day of August. A lot of breaking news in the NFL. It's really hard to keep up with, but I will talk about Arizona trading a lot of players away, bringing a lot of players in, bringing a player in. They just now did another trade with Cleveland. We'll talk about their situation. Isaiah Simmons was the biggest name here, former first-round pick. I'll get into that as well. Jerry Jeudy, it's not looking too good for Sean Payton and this Denver Bronco team in week one, even before the season gets started. He's injured. Plus, going to get into some NFL futures. Futures meaning we are 2 weeks away, folks, from the start of the season. Talk a little bit about some of these preseason odds. I think that there may be bargain plays for all of you future gamblers out there and more. I'll be back here in 49 seconds. We'll hit the ground running here on Sports Scope. We'll take our first and only break. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to sports, that is sports with an S, another S, scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program. Also, okay, I'm back here. I did want to thank Al Borges for coming on the program. This is his book here, folks. The Deny the Tiger. Great guest. Listen to that. I listened to the playback of that. You guys were great. Pickles, Corey, Carlos, all of you out there, of the regulars that listen to the program. That playback was really good. Make sure and share that show on any platform you get. Al Borges, really good. Going to make sure and bring him back on when I get a chance here, which is a good lead in. Now, also make the quick announcement. Tomorrow, I've got to work. I'm working another night shift. Not going to be a program tomorrow, so we're going to have. Thank you, Pickles. We're going to have a replay on. Again, folks, it's not going to be like this all the time, especially when the season starts here. I've just had to put back some money. This is part of the sacrifice of doing this show, taking this big pay cut, doing the program 5 days a week, getting a really good opportunity. Some of these opportunities that are rare come up at work where I can make some quick money and put that back and get ahead, really for the football season, because I want to hit the ground running once this baby starts here in the NFL in 2 weeks. We've got some college games on this week, kind of like week 0. That Navy game will be somewhat interesting, and Notre Dame, that's very tempting. It's played in Ireland. They are playing. I think Navy is 20.5 points behind as far as the point spread is concerned. Notre Dame, with the quarterback they've got coming in, that may be a decent play, but that means never mind. Those are pretty weak games. Real college football starts next week. 1 week from today, you got teams like Florida. You've got teams like Florida that will play 1 week from today. They will play against Utah. They will play against. They will play against Utah 1 week from today. And then, of course, Labor Day weekend, there's some pretty good games on here. And I'm not going to be working Labor Day week. I was telling Carlos next week, Carlos, we will be talking college football playoffs That's what I'm really going to dig into next week. The college game leading up to the start of the college season next week. I'll talk about some teams of interest of myself. Yep, that's right. Yeah, Gate. Now, I'll say this. I went the other direction, Pickles. Last year, I was telling this girl at work, she's a big gambler, or Ariana, and I said, listen, Ari, I said, Utah, they're a good team. They are favored, but this Florida team is very fast. This game's going to be played in Gainesville. I'm telling you, this Florida team will beat them down in Gainesville. They're too fast. And sure enough, it was a very close game. That was my first bet I won of the football season. Florida over Utah. This year, I think it's totally opposite. I think this game's going to be played in Utah. They're 4.5-point favorites. I'll take Utah minus 4.5, playing 1 week from today. And, of course, 2 weeks from today, we have the big kahuna. We have the NFL with the Detroit Lions playing at the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, Get Up, the ESPN show, Dan Orlowski and Mike Greenberg, all those guys, and that whole cast there, Kimberly Martin, one of the probably the most likable show on ESPN. I try not to watch it, but they don't try to lecture people there on that particular program. They were actually, like I said, I was ahead of this. They were saying, hey, we are concerned now about Chris Jones holding out into the season now, the defensive tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. They even mentioned that Detroit's going to line up and run the football. As I said a day before, they said that today on today's program. As I mentioned the day before, that's what that should be if they have any sense there. And I like Dan Campbell. I think he will figure that out, the head coach of Detroit. Will line up and run that ball. That 6.5 looks good. That really does look good there. That's 6.5 at Kansas City. If things remain the same. Now, maybe at the last hour, maybe Brett Veach has a come to Jesus moment. Even if they wait a few days into a week, former general manager, I can't remember this guy's name, but he was on the Get Up show. He said, listen, even if this guy comes in next week, he's missed all of training camp, we'll probably have to put him on a snap count so we're not pulling a hamstring and getting him injured anymore. In that first game against Detroit, I said before, I do not think Kansas City's going to be the team that they were. They're going to have a fall. Just how hard of a fall are they going to have this year? I'll stand by that. And now I feel even more confident that they're going to take a step back here because Chris Jones is holding out. Not to mention the 34-year-old tight end, Travis Kelce. Not to mention the shuffling of the offensive line, letting their left tackle go in free agency, not being able to nail down Laramie Tunsil in the trade there. Remember, Orlando Brown, he's now a Cincinnati Bengal. It's a lot of moving parts down there. Now, of course, you're thinking if you're Andy Reid and you're Brett Veach, you've got 2 Super Bowl wins in the last 4 years. You've been to the AFC Championship game. I may be mistaken here, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. Every year that Patrick Mahomes has been there, they've been in an AFC Championship game. I mean, this guy's bringing nothing but success there. So I'm kind of getting a sensibility that they're resting on their laurels a little bit. Okay. But anyways, there is some news and I need to get to it. All right. Arizona. Let's talk about what just happened just a few minutes ago. Josh Dobbs, he was traded from Cleveland to Arizona, which tells me what's the bigger concern here. You say, well, that's Josh Dobbs. Arizona just traded away their left tackle. This Jack Jones guy, they moved him over to Houston. Also, Arizona trades Isaiah Simmons, Pickles, trades him to the New York Giants, Carlos. He's a tweener guy. Tweener. I mean, they don't know what to play him in safety. They don't know what to play him in linebacker. He's a very good athlete. Had a nose for the ball. Probably, arguably the best. I say second best. I like Budda Baker a little bit better as a player because of his consistency, but he is more of an edge rusher kind of guy. Linebacker, you can play him up at safety some. Very good athlete. Top 10 pick. Some are saying it's a great pickup there. 7th round trade for a guy that was former 1st round. Moved him on to the New York Giants under Wink Martindale. Also, we all know him as Don, but his nickname's Wink, the defensive coordinator for the Giants here. So that tells me that they maybe he doesn't fit in Gannon's offense there. Jonathan Gannon, the head coach there at Arizona. I'm thinking that they're just trying to clear off as much space as they can. Remember, J.J. Watt retired. No really major defensive acquisitions made by this team. Budda Baker wanted out. Then he decided to come back on. Now he may want out again. The safety there. He's their only real playmaker you got on that team from a defensive standpoint there. But going back to the Josh Dobbs trade with Colt McCoy on that roster, that tells me that Arizona's not sure that Kyler Murray's going to come back anytime soon. That's what that tells me. And Michael Bidwell, as I predicted, around draft day, or that first weekend after draft day, after I seen the trades that they were doing, that he is playing he's playing a 5-year plan here. He's not playing a 1-year plan. He has come to the notion that from everything I hear and reading between the lines, that he made a huge mistake. By the way, their general manager, he stepped down. They fired Cliff Kingsbury. Said that would probably happen, and it did happen. Good scope. I need to get back to doing that. But anyways, so he moves all this, and everything I hear and read that Kyler Murray, obviously coming back from a pretty serious, I think, an ACL, whatever. But remember when they signed him to the extension, they put the study clause in the contract. Okay. Michael Bidwell, the owner, wanted him to rehab in Phoenix. They didn't not want him to rehab in Texas, where Murray's from. A little bit of spat about that. Okay. Also, there's a lot of news that a lot of the scouts are really harping on this year's crop of quarterbacks. Caleb Williams out of USC, supposed to be the top quarterback, having Patrick Mahomes type of comparisons. I actually like the guy from North Carolina, this Drake May. Got a lot of talk about him. He was talked about last year as well. This is what this guy's thinking. He can't cut or move Kyler Murray. He wants to get him back and play him and possibly trade him, because they're looking, according to Vegas, they're at a 4.5 games to 4 to 4.5 game over and under. FanDuel's got them basically the favorites to get the number 1 pick. Also, I had my man Al Borges on here, and he mentioned the Michigan quarterback here. He mentioned the Michigan quarterback, J.J. McCarthy from Michigan. Ironically, I was looking on the X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and he was listed as a mock draft guy going to the Minnesota Vikings. Not to mention Michael Penix. He's a very strong arm quarterback out of University of Washington. I just named 4 quarterbacks there, folks. 4 quarterbacks that could all potentially be quarterbacks taken early in the draft. I've been mentioning guys like Joe Milton from University of Tennessee, who's getting a lot of offseason buzz. Very strong arm there. I haven't mentioned Quinn Ewers out of Texas, who, highly sought after guy, supposedly having a very good camp. Didn't even mention those 2 guys. Okay. So those are just the ones we know. What about the players that that are off the hook in the regular season that nobody's been talking about that rise up? So there could be 5, 6, 7 quarterbacks that could have high grades coming out in next year's draft. He's thinking maybe I just get one of those and I chop the whole Kyler Murray thing up as a loss and start over. But they're definitely looking. And then why did he hire Jonathan Gannon? The guy could not get a stop. He could not get a stop in the second half of the Super Bowl. I brought in the Philly sports guy. He says, man, we gave up 30-something points against Detroit in week 1. He said, it's addition by subtraction if we get rid of this guy. And, of course, why did he do that? It's like they're trying to tank, So looking at some of their draft picks, and I was looking here, Pro Football Focus put out, listen, these guys got their first-round pick. They've got the Texans' first-round pick. They got a second-round pick. They've got 3 third-round picks, one including the Titans. Remember, the Titans traded up to get Will Levis in this year's draft, and the Texans gave up another third-round pick. I think that was part of the Will Anderson trade, and a 4th-round pick, and they're projected to get a compensatory 4th-round pick as well. They'll have 2 4th-round picks. They'll have a 5th round from the Eagles. They'll have a 6th round. They just traded a 7th round to get Joshua Dobbs in. So they're a total tank job here. Total tank job here with the Arizona Cardinals, and if Michael Bidwell, the owner, if he have it his way, he would like to get a Kyler Murray back about week 10, week 12, and let him look good and get his stock up, and then turn around and trade him to somebody else around the league. So there's a lot of moving parts here in Arizona. He's playing the 5-year plan, So I just think that Arizona is definitely they're probably a 2 or 3 win team. They're 4.5 under. If FanDuel had that at 5, that would be a play there. Because now, mind you, the players they're putting out there, they're all playing for jobs. They're going to play hard, but they're just not trying to put as many low quality players as they possibly could. And, again, the Rams aren't going to be that good, so they got to play the Rams twice. Maybe they still won there. So you just never know how many wins they can mess around and hit that 5 wins and mess you over on that over and under in the future trade, or I would have took that. Okay, speaking of bad news, just got to call it like I see it. I had Denver winning, the Broncos winning about 11 games a month ago. And that's why I said on this program, folks, that I always like to put my final, like the guy from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Regis Philbin. I like to put my final answer in just before the season starts. Okay. Jerry Jeudy has got a hamstring injury, Pickles, and now ESPN's just saying that he's expected to miss, quote, several weeks. Multiple sources told ESPN the Broncos, their season opener is going to be against the Raiders. 17 days, several weeks. I do not think Jerry Jeudy is going to play in week 1. Okay. The Raiders are getting 4.5 points in that game. And that's starting to look with Jimmy Garoppolo playing and that rookie, that Tyree Wilson in defense, and, of course, Max Crosby at defense there. That looks pretty good, Pickles. That looks pretty good, that Raiders plus 4.5. Not to mention, folks, that Tim Patrick suffered a torn Achilles tendon in the first week of camp, and KJ Hamler, the other receiver, was diagnosed with a heart element that is being treated with medication. He was released. And they mentioned something about second-year wide receiver Jalen Virgil. So they are totally stripped down of starting wide receivers there. You got Sutton there And that's about it, Pickles. You got Cortland Sutton there, and that's about it. You throw in the fact that you've got Russell Wilson playing this much time into the preseason. It's simply because Sean Payton does not have enough faith in him, or he wouldn't be playing him. And practice must look sloppy and choppy. You know, you get those three receivers out. There's not a lot of depth there. Maybe you put some coverage, you blanket Cortland Sutton, and then you've got a bunch of guys that are not, that are subpar. Okay, you throw in the fact that Sean Payton's out here criticizing Nathaniel Hackett, saying it's one of the worst coaching job ever, and yada yada yada. Now I'm starting to put all this together and realize that maybe Sean Payton is saying all this so he can give himself an out for a season that could be not as bad as last year, that could be more underwhelming, where this is really like a 7-10 team now. Okay, this is a team that they've got too many moving parts and they're moving in the wrong direction. Remember, they traded away their best pass rusher at the end of last season. Their first-round pick went over to Seattle. This Seattle, and there's some speculation here. There's some speculation that maybe, just maybe, that the Denver Broncos have gotten a bill of goods with Russell Wilson. And I don't know about him being totally washed, but he may have lost a step. And if that's true, and all these picks and all that money that Denver is given to Wilson, because they re-upped him just before the season start, and now you got new ownership, this whole thing could just blow up. And right now, I just cannot see this team making the playoffs. Now they're talking about maybe he gets benched at some point this year. So this thing is not going as planned. Pickles said he's looking for an excuse to lose. It's starting to look like that. You know, it's starting to look like that. And, you know, we'll have to wait and see. But I got a feeling that this team is not a playoff team. So this opens it up for the team that's got some more good news than bad news in a team like the Jets. You know, the Jets, Dwayne Brown's practicing today. I've read that. I know that Corey Davis is out. They're going to have to get another receiver there at some point. That could happen in the next 24 hours, in my opinion. And then Micaiah Becton looks good. I would say Dan Orlowski, I was watching that get up. He did make a good point. Maybe if they feel like they've got offensive line problems with the Jets, maybe they go after Jonas Williams, the guy who's been moved to right tackle from left tackle, because the Orlando Brown acquisition to the Cincinnati Bengals, that could be an option. But this also opens it up for a team like the Jets, because I do expect the AFC East to be very competitive. I do not think the Raiders are going to play a whole season with Garoppolo. Maybe they get this rookie quarterback, Aiden O'Connell. Not really in love with the Raiders from the get-go anyways. You look at the holes that Kansas City has. I said a few weeks ago, I think this LA Charger team will probably win, pending they don't get on their own way, probably win that division. Could see maybe a Kansas City hovering in as a wild card, depending on how long Chris Jones hangs out. Shoot, they may be leaning on Patrick Mahomes to do too much. He get injured and they not make the playoffs. Then it opens it up for the AFC North teams, which I'm about to talk about here in a minute, and those AFC East teams, and maybe even a Titans team to get in as a wild card, who I did not have getting in as a wild card or as a division winner a month ago. So there's a lot of moving parts here in the league right now. But right now, I just do not think it's going to happen for this Denver team. That it's just too many. It's just a flood, and this is how it happens. Just a flood of injuries for the Broncos. Looks like they're going to have to depend on the draft and maybe be sellers and start trading more players just to accumulate more picks. Now, Sean Payton getting a lot of money. Maybe he just says, you know what? If Wilson's playing that bad, bench Wilson, put the backup in there. I don't even know who it is, Ripken or whatever. Put the backup in there. It means no, never mind. And start trading away defensive players. Try to pull an Arizona off, and then you get in a hunt for one of these young quarterbacks, and then try to work out some kind of settlement with Wilson. That could be an option. That's a little premature right now, but that could be on the table in a month or maybe 6 weeks from now, Pickles, if they're 1-3, 1-4 to start, and Wilson's looking bad or he's dealing with some type of injury for trying to do too much. So, a lot of crazy stuff has happened out here, folks. A lot of wild and crazy stuff here, you know. Anyways, okay. So I mentioned NFL gambling odds. Didn't get to everything I wanted to, but this is something I like to touch on from time to time. These future bets here, okay? The Cleveland Cavaliers, the Cleveland Browns, been talking about for the last month or so. They're a team here that nobody's really talking about. I mean, look, you got the Cincinnati Bengals in your division. With you got a team here that was in your division. They was in the AFC Championship game last year. They were in the Super Bowl the year before that. They upped their offensive line. They had a scare. With Burrow, but apparently that calf is not that big a deal because he's already starting to throw long. Then you've got the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. Media's really pumping them up a lot. But by the way, Marlon Humphrey, starting corner, he's going to be out for a while with Baltimore. Okay, and so Pittsburgh had a great offseason, really good draft. The only problem with Pittsburgh is Broderick Jones, their big left tackle that they got in the first round. He's still not cracked the starting lineup yet at left tackle. Maybe he's underwhelming. He's not as good as originally thought to be, which goes back to Cleveland, okay? According to FanDuel, you say, why do you just say FanDuel? Because MGM Bet, some of these other apps here, these other gambling apps, they're usually about the same anyways, if you look at it. But DraftKings, whichever one you use, it makes no never mind. But if you look at this Cleveland Brown team, listen, folks, they won 7 games with Jacoby Brissett last year. You know, I'm looking. This is their schedule last year with the guy that is an accident waiting to happen. One of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league. He must be a very good locker room guy. He's one of those players. You don't know why he keeps getting jobs, but he does. Kind of like Nathan Peterman. Remember him? He keeps getting these backup jobs. But anyways, this guy opened up the season. This is the Browns. Basically, they got the same team, but they made some additions here. You know, they lost week 2, 31-30 to the Jets last year. You know, they lost against Atlanta, 23-20 last year. Had leagues in both of them games. This is at the beginning of the season while Deshaun Watson was suspended, for example. They lost 30-28 against the Chargers. They're not losing that game with the healthy Deshaun Watson this year, okay? They lost at Baltimore 23-20, all right? Then Watson comes back in week he comes in back in week 13, week 2 they lose 23-10, but then they beat Baltimore 13-3. They lost a tight game to the Saints, and then they lost in weeks 18 to Pittsburgh, but they end up winning with all that commotion at quarterback. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. Are you trying to tell me that they can't flip 4 or 5 games with the Deshaun Watson at quarterback on that team? There's been reports that that now they're making a lot of cap space. They lead the league in cap space. They got $34.5 million in cap space. What they're trying to do is set that up for this year because they're going to roll that over to next year because Watson's got about $65 million cap hit next year. But this year they brought in Jim Schwartz here at defense. They were one of the worst run defenses in the league with guys like Myles Garrett, you know. They got Zadarius Smith from Minnesota as a pass rusher, brought in back Myles Garrett, of course, a defensive player of the year type of player, a candidate, with guys like Denzel Ward on the back end here, and that really good offensive line with Nick Chubb running behind it, with Amari Cooper, Peoples-Jones, and David Njoku. That run defense is going to go from 25th, 26th to about 10th or better, in my opinion. Okay. So I think that they're one of the best bargains. Remember, this team was picked by a lot of people, including me. I'll say I effed up to make it to the Super Bowl a few years ago. And then I realized Baker Mayfield was just too immature. They got to the playoffs a few years ago. If you remember, this is basically the same team. They've got this offensive line clicking. You know, they've got this offensive line clicking. Remember, they went to the playoffs a few years ago, had Kansas City on the ropes there. Of course, Mayfield threw a couple passes in the dirt. And last year, Mayfield, with his shoulder injury, they finally moved off a year before last. And, of course, last year they got Watson. And Mayfield is an afterthought. But you start to look at this defense here. This team is 9.5 over and under wins. And also read that Cleveland is considered to be this is to make the playoffs, Pickles. I think this is one of the best buys on the board, the Cleveland Browns, to make the playoffs. This is in FanDuel. They are plus 112 to make the playoffs. I didn't even read the teams that are negative to make the playoffs, but other teams like Pittsburgh's plus 128, the Packers are plus 138, the Giants are plus 172. Then you've got teams like Tennessee at 198, which is a pretty good one. Commanders at 310. That's a good buy there. But the Cleveland Browns at plus 112 with Deshaun Watson, he's got one of the best touchdown to interception ratios in the league. He's had it his whole career. He's very Aaron Rodgers-like, you know, with Stefanski there. And they're going to be able to run the ball. He's going to have time to throw the ball. They're going to have pass rushing ability. And plus they've got guys like Denzel Ward on the backside at cornerback here. Think about it this way. They play Cincinnati at home in week 1, for example. Now, Cincinnati, we don't know for sure that it's either Trevor Siemian or Joe Burrow's playing in that game. You know, Joe Burrow hasn't practiced yet. Now, like I said, they said he's throwing the ball, but he's not, air quote, practicing. That stuff takes timing. Last year, he didn't practice up to the last week, and he had like 4 or 5 interceptions, and the Steelers beat him. And that was in Cincinnati. They open up in Cleveland, and Cleveland's plus 1.5. I think that's a great play for the Browns in week 1 there, okay? Because you don't know what his time is going to look like, Joe Burrow. So now they could get it together, but you start to look at this Cleveland Brown team, they're really getting slept on right now. So I really like those odds to make the playoffs. Plus 112 is pretty bleeping good, if you ask me. AFC winner, which means to make it to the Super Bowl, for example, the Cleveland Browns, they are, let's see, where the heck are they? They're plus 1,800 to make it to the Super Bowl. They're a legit Super Bowl contender. So if you put $100 the Browns to make it to the Super Bowl, not win it, make it there, you win $1,800. So I do think that they are the best to go over 9.5. They're the best to make the playoffs. I just mentioned you can X out Denver right now with all those injuries there. Okay, remember you get three wild cards here. That counts wild cards too. You get 3 wild cards. So they're hand in hand to win the division. It's not, you can listen to the national media all you want to, but the Ravens, their best cornerback is already out for a while. Marlon Humphrey. And by the way, that $15 million they played for Odell Beckham, by the way, he's hurt again. They don't know if he's even going to play week 1. Now, Zay Flowers, I hear their pass rush is pretty vanilla for their standards. It's pretty bad for Baltimore standards. Well, you know what they spent their first-round pick on wide receiver? And they put $15 million against Odell Beckham, who's coming off an ACL, who didn't even play last year, Pickles. He didn't even play last year. So, and you're trying to get Lamar Jackson to get them the ball. Meanwhile, your defense is taking some hits here. Your best corner's not going to play in week 1. They're 10-point favorites, by the way, against Houston. If Houston was playing Davis Mills, I might take Houston in that 10, Pickles. I might, with those injuries to Baltimore. But if they play Stroud, you play a rookie, I don't know. But I don't think Baltimore is going to make the playoff. I think they're going to finish last in the North. And Pittsburgh's going to be better. We don't know how much better. It's between the 2 Ohio teams in the North, okay? I don't think the Raiders are going to do anything. Not sure Tennessee is going to get – Tennessee is pretty shaky on the line too, okay? If Tennessee don't win that division, I don't think they make it. So you're looking between the AFC East, the West has got their problems. There's an outside chance Kansas City might not make it. If you really think about it, there's a chance Kansas City might not make playoffs the way things look right now. Especially, so I really think that this Cleveland Brown team is definitely a team that could at least make the playoffs and win 10 games. Plus 9.5, I'll take over 9.5, and I'll take them to win to make it to the playoffs. I don't know about getting to the Super Bowl or anything, but I think judging by the fact that they were 7-10 last year with a lot of close losses, they're not going to lose those with Deshaun Watson there at quarterback. Excuse me, folks. I had to take me a drink of water here. Got the hiccups. See what Pickle says here. That's a mouthful. Cincinnati. Pickle says it's Cincinnati, Cleveland, Baltimore. Yeah, that's. I think it could be Cincinnati, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Baltimore. I think Baltimore is going to fall in the cellar. It's win or go home for Stefanski. Yeah, I agree with that. Cleveland will make the playoffs. Dead bang lock. I mean, depending on obviously Watson getting hurt or a flood of injuries with the offensive line. Like I said, the biggest issue, they were 25th. They got a new coordinator. They're going to tighten up that run. They'll give up some big plays in the passing game, but they'll tighten that run up. I guarantee you that. Simeon plays opening day. If Simeon's starting, we won't know this probably till 2 weeks from now. The season start. The first injury report, the serious injury report, we'll know 2 weeks from now whether or not Joe Burrow is going to play week 1, Pickles. And if it's Trevor Simeon, that's Cleveland at home. That place is going to be rocking, man. Plus, by the way, not to mention, the Browns match up well against the Bengals anyways. They got their first win against Joe Burrow has not beaten the Cleveland Browns except one time. This guy's been in the league 3 years. So that's 6 games. He's 1-5 against the Browns. He lost last year. against the Browns. They finally beat the Browns late in the season. Okay. Pickles don't think he's got the ability to make it the Super Bowl. Stefanski, we'll find out. We shall find out. Marlon Humphrey, best cornerback, going to be out for a while for Baltimore. And, of course, Nick Chubb, great line. Chubb is running the ball well, catching the ball. Donovan Peoples-Jones, Amari Cooper, David Njoku, their other tight ends good. They're going to live up to the hype that they were supposed to with Mayfield a few years ago. So they could be a Super Bowl sleeper. They're definitely in the Super Bowl bubble, in my opinion. But I do think that they are the best play for the money if you're just picking to make the playoffs. Okay. Others. I just mentioned the Cincinnati. By the way, and their backup quarterback is Dorian Thompson Robertson, the rookie from UCLA. I mentioned he's having a good camp. Well, they moved off of Dobbs. They traded him for a 7th-round pick. For a 5th-round pick, excuse me. According to Tom Presio, the Browns are sending Josh Dobbs to a 7th-round pick for the Cardinals and a 5th in a 2024, a 7th and a 5th-round pick for Josh Dobbs. So they got 2 picks there for Dobbs, and they're going to roll with the rail guy. Okay, other futures that I've noticed here. Let's go back to Cincinnati for a minute, okay? Everything I see and read, Cincinnati may get off to a rough start due to rust, per se, with Joe Burrow. It may be rust, like it was. Remember last year they lost early to Dallas. They lost early to Dallas. They lost opening week to. They lost opening week. I just mentioned they lost it to Pittsburgh, right? That was because Burrow had his appendix taken out in July. And he started practicing like towards the last week of the season, and his timing was off. His timing was off with both of his receivers, those 2 elite, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Chase even said that. He said, man, my timing was off. We were just a bit off. Got sacked a lot. And so just say they do lose. They do lose early to Cleveland. All right. Burrow, very tough guy. Going to make the adjustments. Even if it gets off to like a 1-3 start, we know how this team finishes. Look how they finished the last couple of years. They played in the AFC Championship game last year. They had some injuries on the offensive line. They moved Jonas Williams to right tackle. The big one was Orlando Brown. They let their safeties go, but they're really well coached. I think Bates is going to be fine. They're going to be fine without Bates, who is now with the Atlanta Falcons, who they're kind of tough to find out. But if you look at it, teams that lose a Super Bowl do not get back. History was not on my side, and I picked them anyways with those 3 offensive lineman injuries because I figured with you're playing a guy who's hobbling around on 1 foot, and he pulls off a great feat there in Patrick Mahomes, and we know what happened. They won the game barely and then end up winning the Super Bowl. That being said, this team, AFC Championship game, Super Bowl, now they've settled in. Before that, tightness of the calf there was having a very good mini camps, voluntary, involuntary, early training camp. Now I think that he's more from a mental standpoint. Joe Mixon, part of what he says, he's 28 too. Now I noticed he's had some off field. I talked about Mixon. He's very lucky to be in the league. That being said, he also took a big pay cut because he wanted to stay with the Cincinnati Bengals. He says, his words, not mine, this team is special. We think we can win a Super Bowl. I believe him. I believe him. With extra time on this team, I do think that they can win the North again, and they can win the Super Bowl. They're just to make the to win the Super Bowl. If they make it this time, they'll likely be playing a Dallas, in my opinion, or a San Francisco. The San Francisco's got their quarterback situated. Brock Purdy. Now, Brock Purdy is a second-year player. What have I told you all about second-year quarterbacks who played well their rookie year, on a very good team? There's a lot of them that have went to the Super Bowl and won it. Okay? Ben Roethlisberger, Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, Super Bowl in the second year. Okay? How about this? Let's continue this. Joe Burrow, second year, Super Bowl. Unbelievable. Joe Burrow, second year, Super Bowl, lost. Dan Marino, Super Bowl, second year. He also lost, but he got there. He got there in his second year. 84, 85, 83, 84 is when he's drafted. So Brock Purdy, now, like I said, I think that 49er team, they're going to get Nick Bosa taken care of. I think he's going to play. That being said, Cincinnati is plus. If Cincinnati gets there, I think they'll win it. Is my point. I think they'll win it. I think they got Joe Cool there. I think they have a very good chance. But check this out, Pickles. Cincinnati, not unless Burrow pulls his calf again. If he re-aggravates it, and they're Simeon, they're SOL. They're just bleeping out of luck. But if they get there, Pickles, if you're just wanting to have some money to throw on some futures, they're plus 1,000. Yes, you heard me right. So FanDuel has got Cincinnati at plus 1,000 to win the Super Bowl. And also, Pickles, FanDuel's got a special. By the way, I do this every year. 2 years. Every year. I mean, like it's a lot. They've got a special with FanDuel where if you bet $50 on a team to win the Super Bowl, okay, for every win that team gets during the season, you will get $5 back in bonus bets. And I played that twice. And neither time the team got to the Super Bowl, but I got the bets back for free. I got because it's up to $50 back, right? So you'll get $5 back per win. Last year I picked Buffalo. Buffalo didn't make it, but they won more than 10 games, so I got the money back. That's a great deal if you think about it. So you got plus 1,000. That's huge for Cincinnati. I couldn't believe it, man. Plus 1,000 for Cincinnati to win the Super Bowl. I mean, that is interesting. I can't remember who I picked the year before that. I think it was Cleveland. And Cleveland won 10 games. Remember, they got to the playoffs. So no, it wasn't. It was Tampa. It was Tampa. Tampa got it. They got Tampa got the money there. They got more than 10 wins here. So I think that's pretty interesting. So other bargains per se. Listen, if you're just trying to throw some money out there and you're thinking, is this a good bet? Like a borderline team, for example. I mentioned the Commanders could be a sleeper in the NFC. The Commanders to make the playoffs. The Commanders, Carlos, are plus 360 or plus 310 to make. This is a wild card. Anything win the East, wild card. The Commanders are +3. If you bet $100 for the Commanders to make the playoffs, they're +310. That's one of the best deals out there. The Titans are borderline. I mean, they are right there. Remember, the Titans were one win away from winning the division last year. They made a lot of upgrades on their offensive line. They went out and got DeAndre Hopkins. They supposedly Tannehill's having a great camp. You're not seeing him play in the preseason because he's having a pretty freaking good camp. The Titans to make the playoffs are +198. +198. So I think that's a pretty good deal. That's a pretty good deal. Your Giants, Carlos, are +172. So the odds makers are thinking they're not going to make the playoffs. Hadn't you noticed I didn't mention anybody with a negative? Those are teams like the Eagles, the Chiefs, teams with really good quarterbacks here and loaded rosters here. The Cowboys aren't even listed. They're the teams with the negatives. This is just to make the playoffs per se. Other bargains that I picked up here. This is all from FanDuel, but like I said, usually the books are around. These are some screenshots. Okay, the East. Nobody knows who's really going to win the AFC East. Buffalo's the favorite, but if Diggs won't, if something happens in week one, between right now, if Dwayne Brown practices and stays practicing from today is 2 weeks from the first official injury report. Say Dwayne Brown's practicing full practice, Mekhi Becton full practice. If that remains to be seen from this day all the way up to 2 weeks from now, Thursday, into Friday, into the weekend, on Monday night, Dwayne Brown playing at left tackle, and then you got Mekhi Becton at right tackle. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to pick the Jets to beat Buffalo. And then when that happens, there's conflicting reports here that Stephon Diggs wants out of Buffalo. And I think this could be a potential. I've been talking about this all summer. Antonio Brown situation. Stephen A. Smith reported it. Immediately, Diggs said, it's bull crap. I want to be a Bill. When there's smoke, there's usually fire. I could see him wanting out after a week one loss. Total turmoil in Buffalo. I've seen it happen with Pittsburgh. I've seen it happen with the Raiders where you've got a disgruntled diva wide receiver. Things start to go south quick. I would pick. So the Bills are favored. The Jets are +250 to win the East. But the Dolphins are +290. The Dolphins have been in discussions with the Colts to get Jonathan Taylor here. Okay, that's a play at 290 pickles. The Patriots are +800 to win it. They're picked to finish last in the East. The Patriots are still coached by Bill Belichick. Keyshawn Booth is supposed to have a great camp. Kendrick Bourne is supposed to have a great camp, according to Belichick, who rarely hands out. If you're just wanting to just kind of take a risk on some money, a high risk tech stock, look at maybe pick at the Patriots to win it. Say that the Buffalo falls apart, and they send a guy away like a Stephon Diggs. What's his name? Josh Allen is dealing with the nagging injury. A 34-year-old Von Miller's hurt again. Okay. Thank T.Y. What's his name? T.Y. Hilton. Tua's on concussion protocol for 6 weeks. And Dwayne Brown goes down, and Aaron Rodgers is out with the thumb injury or calf injury. And you got Zach Wilson in there. Boom. There you go. There you go. The Patriots are selling. They're +800 to win that division. there's your scenario where the Patriots could win the East plus 800. You're kidding me. You're not kidding me, Pickles. I don't expect that to happen. But I thought that was an interesting and for the record, speaking of divisions, we're talking divisions. Going back to Cleveland, they're plus 400 to win the North. Vegas, everybody's bought into to Lamar Jackson is going to be this great prolific passer. It's the Bengals at plus 150. It's the Ravens at plus 210 to win the AFC North. It's the Cleveland Browns at plus 400. If I were making these odds, I would say the Bengals at plus 150. I would put the Browns at plus 175 to come in second because I think it'll be that close in the North. Okay. In the South, of course, the Titans are plus 310. Jacksonville's minus 155. They're heavy favorites to win the South. But I think Tennessee's going to be on them all year. I think they'll be on their heels. They'll be right on the rear end all year long. I really do. You know, they also have a left tackle that is out for 4 weeks. So, and then you've got the Chargers caught my eye, plus 300. Kansas City's minus 180. That could be the play. That could be the play of the year right now. If Chris Jones says, let me tell you something, you either pay me or I'm sitting out 7 weeks, and Brett Veach draws, the general manager of the Chiefs, if he draws a line in the sand there and he says, I'm not going to pay you. You come back, we're going to fine you, yada, yada, yada. If I'm Chris Jones, I got 2 rings in my pocket. I want this big extension. This is my last big chunk of money I'm going to get. And say this Kansas City, they will not win these. They will not win the West without Chris Jones playing in first 7 weeks. Then you got the Chargers at plus 300, plus 6 for Denver. And of course, the Vegas Raiders are like a plus 1,000. Raiders are just they're a disaster waiting to happen. So those are the ones. Dallas is plus 175. The Eagles are minus 115. I mentioned Detroit at plus 145. I think that they're rightfully picked there. The Saints are rightfully picked to win the South with Atlanta in second. So everything else doesn't really – the ones I just mentioned, those are the ones that really stood out for me, per se. Okay. As far as like the NFC Championship game to get to the Super Bowl, teams that make it, plus 400 for San Francisco. Dallas is plus 600. They are legit Super Bowl contenders. Detroit's plus 800 just to get there. They're plus 800. And really it drops off. Seattle's 13. Minnesota's plus 12. Minnesota's so overrated. You know, I would put in a Commanders team as plus 3,000 to make the Super Bowl. In the AFC, to make the Super Bowl, Tennessee's plus 4,000. So if you're just trying to throw some money on that to make the Super Bowl, if Tennessee's playing well, that number will go down. You know, this team was in the AFC Championship game about 3 or 4 years ago. They were the number 1 seed 2 years ago. Last year, they was 1 game away from getting there. This is just to make it, not to win it, just to make the Super Bowl. So I think that those are, you know, it's pretty interesting there. Plus 1,000 for San Francisco to win it, and plus 1,000 for Cincinnati to win it. I'm telling you, FanDuel has Kansas City and Philadelphia and Buffalo as the top 3, and I don't see none of those 3 getting to the Super Bowl this year. Maybe Buffalo, but not with Stephon Diggs. Pickle says Diggs is becoming toxic. Yeah, he's Terrell Owens meets Antonio Brown. It's just a matter of time with Diggs. And Pickle says never underestimate Bill Belichick. If you guys recall 2 years ago, the Patriots were leading. They were on like a 10-game winning streak or something like that. You know, there's a scenario where they could win the AFC East. Okay, so these are some plays that stuck out to me. If you had the money just to have fun with, a few dollars here and there, that's what I would recommend, those numbers that I mentioned to you. You know, those are realistic, and those are good numbers. You know, anything that's got a negative in front of it, I just don't think those are good plays. You know, the obvious here. But crazier things have happened. Records are made to be broken. Maybe it is Philadelphia, but I doubt it. I really do. By the way, Philadelphia, man, you know, I'm seeing all these different magazines and online sites and publications. Jalen Hurts is on the cover of a lot of things. He's got a new contract extension. They've got a new offensive coordinator. There's a lot of hype there. Jason Kelsey's got his big time. There's supposed to be some kind of reality show with him and his brother. Travis is coming out pretty soon with the Eagles there. Travis is playing with the Chiefs. You know, they lost the Super Bowl. I feel like the Eagles are really going to be feeling themselves this year. They've got 2 30-plus-year-old, mid-30 guys at offensive line. I could see the Eagles imploding. I mean, they've got great players. Don't get me wrong. Great draft, Jalen Carter. I love getting DeAndre Swift. But also, you got to look at it. Hey, it's the human nature. Like Jim Jeffcoat said, they coming off that Super Bowl hangover, but they're also feeling themselves too, and they're in a very hungry division where no team has repeated in 20 years. Now, it was the Eagles that repeated, but that was back in 2001. You know, so Pickles loves to talk gambling and futures. I love it, man. I do. I love talking futures here. Those are just food for thought. Those are not my final prediction, but I think those are some stocks that I would look at, some football stocks, you know. So I'll be back on Monday. There's no telling what's going to happen this weekend. There could be some. Pickle says neither Kelsey brother will make the Super Bowl. I'm with you. I'm with you there. I'm leaning Cincinnati 49er rematch like 89, except it's flipped. Cincinnati wins. Those are just two teams. I think Dallas could get back. The AFC, Cleveland could get there in the AFC. Jacksonville could get there in the AFC. With the lucky break, the Jets could get there. That defense is hungry. Will McDonald's having a great camp, by the way. But, you know, we'll see what happens here. If you guys like the show, share the show. I'll be back Monday again. It's not going to be like this. Once the season starts, you're going to start to see Sports Scope Monday through Friday. This is part of the sacrifice here. And, hey, you know, never know. I may have a good guest in here. It could be Cowboys and Browns. You know, what an interesting Super Bowl that would be. Okay, so have a good one, everybody. Same place, same time here Monday on Sports Scope. Now, check out the rerun, though. It may be something you missed the last time. Good night, everybody.